So, what I want to present is what we have done in this program, the main program, that is focused on the question of globalization, monetary globalization, depression of silver, and the consequences of the depression of silver. I mean, the main change from bimetallism to gold standard. I will present quickly the aim of the program, the main result, and the main conclusions. I will start in 5 points. That is a brief history of coinage in European history, then the history of monetary unions from the beginning to 19th century, then the most important period about the 19th century, the silver crisis, that is the most important point in our program, and what exactly we try to do in the main program. Let's begin with the first point, coinage in European history. You know more or less about, or perhaps you know perfectly perhaps the history of coinage, and you know that at the beginning of coinage, the main resource, the main amount of gold and silver was linked to the defeat of Darius in front of Alexander the Great. And when Alexander the Great took Babylon and all the cities in Persia, he took about 3,000 of silver and 2,000 tons of gold. This coinage, this amount of silver and this amount of gold was taken from Orient and went to Occident slowly, coming from Orient, going to Greece for the means, and then from Greece, after the defeat of Greece in front of Rome, moved to Rome, and then to Western. We can follow exactly the diffusion of silver and gold by studying all the production of the means, trying to have a complete inventory of all the coins struck by the means, trying to estimate the number of coins produced by each die, and trying to have a quantitative analysis of the production of gold and silver. So we can see an important increase of production in Greece, and after 146 BC, an important increase of the production of Rome in silver and gold. You know about technology. Technology is the most important thing. If you want to produce coin, you need to have a good technology. From antiquity up to 17th century, the technology is the same. I mean, there is no major improvement in the technology used by the means. It's always done with dies, and everything is struck by hand, with hammer. Think always that is an industry. The job of a minter, job of mint master, is to produce as much as possible coins with the lightest energy and at the quickest speed. It's not art, it has nothing to do with art, it's only industry. And one of the reasons why there is a difference of thickness between Greek and Roman coins is the increase of the production. So always it's an increase of production and the wish to have the best production of coins. The mint was always the same during this period, with persons in charge of preparing the dies, using metal, striking coin, and counting the coin, checking, and giving to the king or to the authority. It's always the same organization from the Greek period down to the 17th century. In the 17th century, there is an important change in the possibility to produce the coin. Is the use of the press. The press is the possibility to strike larger coins with better production, with heavier coins, and especially it's more difficult to counterfeit coins struck by press than coins struck with hammer. It increased, of course, the possibility for the mints to produce coins, and we have to keep in mind that at this moment arrived in Europe all the metal taken from America. So there is a correlation between the increase of the metal and the change in technology. The second important point in the technology is the move from press to electricity and steam. It's a considerable and very important change because at this moment the production can increase. In example, at the 19th century, during the 19th century, it was possible to produce one large silver coin every second. That means the capacity to produce all the dies, to strike them, to check them, and to put them in circulation. That's an important change, and it's always possible with the machine to have a perfectly round coin with exactly the same quantity of metal. That's the point of technology. Let's move to the question of monetary unions. One of the problems is Europeans always moved from monetary union to the end of monetary union, back to monetary union, small monetary union, large monetary union. So each time it's the same situation, creation and rejection or adoption of monetary unions. So this is always the same kind of history. From the beginning, from the Roman Empire, from the Greek Empire, and we can consider that the creation of the empire by Alexander the Great was the first monetary union, because he tried to impose exactly what new system based on gold and silver for all the empire. But there is always reactions to monetary unions. There are always protestations because it's an important change. And if we want to understand what is a monetary union, we have to understand exactly who has interest to create a monetary union and who has no interest in the creation of monetary union. And this kind of reaction against euro is exactly the same like the former protestation against adoption of new currencies. If we want to see a short abstract about monetary union, let's take some examples. What's the most famous case with the Roman Empire? Problem of metal technology, and now turning to the main problem of 19th century. At the end of the 18th century, the situation is stable. There is a good possibility to strike coins. There is enough metal, and with the stabilization of the empires and the nations, it's possible to have a kind of new monetary unification. The most important monetary unification was created and created in the middle of 19th century. It was decided, some countries decided to join and to adopt the same monetary system in all the countries. It means that all the countries continue to strike their own currency, but this currency was accepted in all the countries. Step by step, all the main European countries adopt this system and try to use all the currencies produced by different countries. It was different countries, different currencies with different legend, different types, but the weight and the alloys were completely the same. So you can leave Greece and bring your coins in France and use in France. And of course, a certification in all the countries. The system of silver and the system of gold was exactly the same. It's exactly what you are doing actually with euros. You can take euro from one country and use them in another country. This system was the most perfect unification. It was using the same currency, striking with the same alloys and the same metal and the same weight, and it was possible to use all the coins everywhere. So, what is important in the 19th century is that this monetary system gave the possibility to have an increase of the trade, an increase of wealth, because it was possible to sell and to buy everything everywhere with the same unit of currency. It was not important if you are speaking about drachma or francs or pound or lira or peseta. It's different names, but for the same unit. So you can use everything, change everything. It's at the basis of the economic development of 19th century. And it's the basis to the appearance of a new social group, that is the bourgeoisie in the 19th century. This bourgeoisie, and we can see this, you can see, of course, this film, it's a perfect demonstration of the wealth of the bourgeoisie in the 19th century. And this bourgeoisie is using this possibility to have trade and to increase the wealth. But everything was based on one point, the relation between gold and silver. I mean, if you go to a mint with silver, you can ask this silver to be struck and to be spread, and you can receive the exact weight of silver in coins. And of course, you can choose to have this amount of silver in coins, or you can choose to have this amount of silver in gold. It's based on a fixed relation between gold and silver. This is the basis of the monetary system, and this relation between 1 gram of gold to 15.5 is more or less, some variation, but it's more or less the same relation from the antiquity. During Roman Empire, it was more about 1 to 15. During Byzantine Empire, it was more 1 gram to 15.6, but more or less the same situation. So the basis of the relation is the basis of the currency, it's the basis of monetary union. So everything was working, trade, wealth, communication, exchange, everything was based on this stability. And this stability, it was a condition of monetary union in the 19th century. And let's back to the coins. The definition of the coins were a quantity of metal, a weight of metal, and the quality of alloy. And these definitions were exactly the same everywhere. But you can check, but the relation is defined by this relation to 1 to 550. What is important is to understand that, of course, slowly there was production of banknotes. And these banknotes were at the beginning very reduced in the circulation. The proportion was not important. And the banknotes were not important in the circulation, first because there was a lot of coins, a lot of gold coins, a lot of silver coins. And the problem of banknotes is counterfeiting. The banknotes were, in general, banknotes with a very important value. It's about 1,000 francs. That means nearly 5 or 6 years for salary for people working in fields or in industry. But the development of banknotes was always linked to a shortage in currency. The best example is this one. This is the situation after the war. You remember, France lost the war against Germany, and France had to pay a large indemnity to Germany. This indemnity was paid in gold and silver. The gold and silver taken from France was replaced by banknotes. You remember the coin? This is the basic coin in circulation, it's 5 francs. And the Bank de France produced 5 francs banknote. These 5 francs banknotes were produced in large number in order to replace the coins, but very shortly it was taken back because Bank de France, that was at this moment a private company, a private bank, never wanted to have a large number of small banknotes in circulation because it's easy to counterfeit. So during the 19th century, except this historical event, except some specific moment, the currency was composed of gold and silver. But that's the fourth point. This equilibrium did not continue a long time. It was the end of the monetary system. And the end of the monetary system is linked to the use and to the discovery of new mine of silver. That's the silver crisis. There's different events, and I will go back to these events later, but different events. But at the end of the 60s, thousands of gold of silver were exported from the States, from Mexico, and slowly there was put in circulation in all the countries. Silver, you can imagine it is some kilograms, but in fact the production and the exportation of silver, it's a question of tons. Thousands of tons each year that was produced and sent across the world. This is a kind of shipwreck we can find with thousands of coins, with thousands of kilos of silver, and we have to imagine that each time all the ships were bringing around the world thousands of tons of silver. So of course it's this kind of ship that is found by treasure detectors and
this is bullion, this is not coins.
Bullion, it's bullion, yeah. It's bullion exported for different things. Yeah. But it's with a good alloy, and each time it's exported from one region to another region. In example from US, it's not exported in coins, it's exported in ingots and sent different countries. And in each country it's transformed in coins. So The silver crisis is that was linked to this production of silver completely disturbed the monetary system. Before this crisis, we can say there are different zones using bimetallism. I mean, using gold and silver linked by the same relation and with the same possibility to use gold or silver. It was America, North and South, Africa linked to the colonies, Europe, of course, and Russia. There was different zone using silver only, mainly silver. It was mainly Asia, India, and Asia. It's a tradition to use silver in these regions. And there was only one country using at the beginning gold. This situation changed completely at the turn of the 19th century. The reasons were different reasons. In America, it was the end of the Civil War that gave the possibility to have a peace period that is favorable for trade and development of the country. It was the creation of the transcontinental railways that gives the possibility to import machines or to export metal. It's important to have the possibility to use railways. And it was mainly, of course, the opening of the mine, silver mine. The possibility to open the silver mine was linked, of course, to possibility to have machines, possibility to have workers, and these two conditions was linked to the development of railways. In Mexico, it was linked to the discovery and exploitation of silver mines. In Europe, it was the development of silver was linked to the end of the war between France and Germany, and to the fact that France has to pay in silver or gold a lot of money, 5 billion francs. It put in circulation a large amount of money. The opening of China was one of the most important problems, evolution, because it opened a large country with a large population using silver, and it was a way to create a new monetary system in Asia. And in Japan, it was the shift to the Meiji period and the decision to modernize Japan. It changed. All the change are linked to crisis, and all the change create crisis. Let's go to our exact program, what we wanted to do in the Damin program, to understand the evolution of the monetary system. We want to see the consequences of arrival of gold and silver. If we have, we have a lot of estimation. All the estimation are more or less true and more or less false. But we can have a kind of evolution. If we consider the gold production from the beginning, 15th century more or less, we can see there is a kind of stable production up to the gold rush in the States. It changed completely the monetary stock. But after this period, the monetary stock, whatever is the evolution and the way to estimate, the monetary stock is more or less stable. If we consider silver production, the silver production increased slowly, and after the discovery of the mines, that was in this moment, the increase was slow, regular, but endless. So we have two systems. One is a brutal increase in the 1840s, of silver, of gold, and versus after a long and very important increase of the production of silver. The consequence, of course, is the value of silver decreased slowly but completely, year after year. And it was absolutely impossible to stop it because there was each year new arrival of silver on the market. This graphic is done with the the value of silver in London. But the system I compare with the value in Shanghai or different places, it's the same evolution everywhere in the world, with different specific moments. This one is the discovery of the mines and the beginning of exploitation of the mines. These two peaks were the consequences of new legislation in the States to try to stop the decrease. And this is the change in the legislation. They decided to stop continuing to buy silver, and they decided to let the price of the silver falling, and this is the new stability. You can see the difference between this one and this one. The value of the silver that was normally 1 to 15 during centuries and centuries fall to about 1 to 30, 35, 40 at the beginning of the 20th century. And the system is, you see the same evolution of curves and the graphics. This one is in China, this one is in Europe. It was the first globalized crisis in this period. So what we can conclude about this evolution and system? What is important for our program is to underline and to show clearly how the different exchange systems were at this period. We try to understand how the people decided to limit the crisis by exporting gold and silver. There was two, let's say, ecosystems. One is concerning the Pacific. There was exchange of silver between States and Mexico. This silver mainly was sent in China and Japan, because you remember this region were using mainly silver. These two regions exchanged silver between each other, I mean China, India, and Japan. They received gold from different regions, mainly Siberia in this moment, or North Korea. And this gold was sent back to the States. This is how the washing machine for the silver was working in Pacific. If we consider the rest of the world, we have different regions receiving silver mainly through London. The market concerning the metals was at 89% done at London. It was the main place for the silver and to fix the value of silver. So it was from London, because all the silver was sent to London and sent back. So from London, the silver was sent to Asia or to India. Of course, India was in relation with China, buying opium or silk. And London received at this same moment gold from South Africa and Australia. And of course, when London was selling silver, they received gold in exchange, because they asked to be paid in gold. So our program was to try to understand. And we decided to have this program, and on the website you can see different things and different documents. And all the conferences we have done are web recorded, and you can find on the website. One of our idea was to disseminate as much as possible all the works and all the presentation, because it's a work program, it's a large question. Everybody can be interested in this, and it is important to have access to the documentation. And if we consider the increase of connection, this program was followed by a lot of persons. We decided to publish all the documentation, and first to republish all the international monetary conferences, because these conferences try to find solution to the silver crisis. It was also the moment to publish all the documents concerning published by France, but also by Japan, but also by England and India. So we wanted to collect all those things and to give access to a new kind of publications and to have all the conferences on the web, but also published on paper. And the syntheses were published this year in 3 volumes. What is important is why. Why there was a crisis with silver and why there was no crisis with gold. You remember the situation in the 40s. In the 40s, there was a large increase of the production of gold. It's gold rush, and the gold produced by the mine was accepted and preserved in the banks. But with silver, the situation was different. The amount of silver was very important, but the population of the world increased. The importance of trade increased. So why in this one case it was possible to accept the new quantity of gold, and why in another situation they decided not to accept this quantity of silver and to let the price of silver going down. So the main person, the main decision was in the end of London. I told you 80% of the market was in the end of the city. It means that although the prices of silver was determined by the prices of London. It was the case for the States, it was the case for China, it was the case for Europe. And this is a place where they decided to let the price of silver falling down. Who? And who was the loser? The loser were all the producers of silver in the States, but around the world, and all the person who has to pay in gold. If I give you an amount of money, and if I give you this amount of money in silver, and if I ask you to give me back this money in gold, you will have to pay one interest on the money I give you, and you have to compensate the depreciation of silver. So if I do this, I am winning on two levels. One is interest, and second, what I take from the value of the depreciation of silver. If you are paying me in products, I will receive more and more produced for the same amount of money. But the question is, who was the loser? The loser in this question is where all the colonies, India, all the colonies, China, all the countries that were at this moment in use of silver, because they were obliged to get money in gold and obliged to pay gold, but it was the amount of money to pay was very important. In fact, in this silver crisis, there is one problem linked to the increase of silver, and one problem is to increase the transfer of wealth between London and the different regions. So this kind of crisis is exactly the same kind of crisis we had in different periods. I mean, this kind of crisis can be the same, the first of a long list of crises when there is a transfer of wealth from one country to another country. And the monetary system is, in all the cases, a way to increase the exploitation of a part of the world.